Hello, so welcome to another reading vlog. Today is day 2 of our new lockdown that we're having down in New Zealand. So far, they've only found this one original family that has the cases, so potentially this lockdown will be short, but we don't know where they got the virus from, so it's a bit of a risk. Anyway, to be honest, these 2 days I haven't really done much different than I would have anyway. Maybe I would have gone into the office today. Maybe. But anyway, I've just been working from home. And I'm supposed to be talking about my reading. So, last night, I started reading Dark Places by Gillian Flynn. I've had this on my shelf for ages. I have also read Gone Girl and also Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. I'm going to swap between saying Gillian and Gillian depending on my mood. I don't know which one's right. I could look it up, but I've been really lazy at looking things up lately. Anyway, this is my 3rd book by her and so far I'm absolutely loving it. Last night I picked it up and I thought I would just read a little bit and I've read 78 pages, which maybe doesn't sound like that much, but it's a lot more than I've been reading in a single day lately. So, really liking this. Basically, we're following this girl who was the youngest daughter in this family where they were all killed, and her eldest brother was convicted of the crime and he's off in jail, and she was actually a witness. She was only 7 years old, but she said that she saw the crime. So she's the only survivor and she's basically been living on donations her whole life. She's suffering from depression, she's quite traumatized, she can't really live an everyday life, but she's now running out of money, and so she's gotten involved with this club that likes to talk about and solve murder mysteries, and she's hoping to make some money through them, even though she doesn't really like to think about the events that happened with her family. But I'm pretty sure that we're going to find out that maybe her brother didn't do it. I'm so excited about this book. To be honest, I've started writing up on my whiteboard in my hallway some of the main clues that I'm picking up on and also like a list of suspects. It's quite dark. Our main character is quite traumatized and of course we're talking about this murder. It's potentially got Satanism involved. Anyway, I'm like maybe a quarter of the way, not quite, a 5th. I'm going to try and read some more of this tonight. I never seem to have enough time at nights lately, but last night I managed to read 70 pages. I also went to bed way too late, so let's not do that again. Anyway, as well, I have been continuing to listen to the audiobook of The Power, and I have to admit that I've become a little bit disengaged from it. I do think it's a good story. I haven't told you in this vlog what it's about. What it's about is basically teenage girls start getting this power where they can shock people with their hands, and then they're also able to wake that power up in older women. So women are becoming very powerful and it's changing the way the world works. The thing is, it's told in this way where it's very surface level, disconnected from the characters. So it's kind of just skimming over events. It does explain how people feel, but it's more like at a distance. And also I feel like a lot of the characters we're following are quite extreme in the way that they're coping with these changes, and I kind of wish we could get a perspective from someone who is a little bit more normal. Anyway, as I said, I'm about halfway through, so we'll see whether it can pull me back in. I do think it's a good story. I just think that it's not in the writing style that I prefer. And as far as audiobooks, that can make it a little bit hard to keep listening and paying full attention. Anyway, that's my reading, so I'll let you know when I've read some more or when I learn some more about what's happening with our lockdown. Hello, so good news is that from tomorrow we're back down to level 2 lockdown, and then all things going well next week we'll probably be back to level 1. I think sometimes for people in other countries, when you hear New Zealand back in lockdown, you probably think, oh, it's really bad, but it's because we go into lockdown when we have like one case that we don't know where it comes from. They still don't know where these cases come from, but it does seem like it's very limited because there's been a lot of tests and very few positives. So that's promising, but I guess we'll see what happens over the next few days. Personally, I'm still going to be staying home from work in level 2, so for me, not that different from level 3, to be honest. But also, to be honest, I've really been liking not going into the office the last few days. There's definitely bad things about lockdown, but there is also definitely some good things, which I will definitely miss. Like last night, I went for a nice lockdown walk with very minimal traffic, and Even though it was still a bit rainy, it was really nice. I'm going to go for another lockdown walk tonight for sure. I really like lockdown walks because it's just like no traffic. You know, like when you go for a walk in the evening, it's normally nice, but without any traffic, it's like so much better. Anyway, let's talk about reading. So on my lockdown walk last night, actually, I listened to The Power. And I do think, like, I've been listening to a lot of that while I've been doing household chores, but listening to it when I'm out and about and I'm not really doing other things does help me to focus on it more. So I can't tell, was it because I was focusing more or was it because I liked it more that I was more engaged in this middle bit? I've been enjoying the middle bits of books a lot more lately. Something wrong with me? Anyway, I did feel like it got a little bit more personal in the middle, and I can see hints of all the different storylines coming together in an interesting way, which will be cool. So now I've only got a couple more hours to go. I'll probably finish that on my lockdown walk tonight, and then I can give you final thoughts. But as well, I did read 50 more pages of this, I think. I would have liked to have read more, but I was good and didn't stay up as late as I have the previous nights. Basically, what's happened? We're just learning more about this murder and some of what happened. So we've got chapters which are from the mother's perspective on the day of the murder, as well as the brother's perspective. And so I've added more clues to my whiteboard in my hallway. I'm still not sure who the murderer is. I expect we've still got a lot of things to be revealed because I'm not even halfway yet. But I am really enjoying it. I kind of don't like the main character. She's quite unlikable but relatable at the same time. It's quite interesting. Like there was a chapter in here which had an animal death, and I think that was not very nice. And in fact that kind of made me cry. And then I remember now, last night I did cry for this whole big section, but I kind of feel like the chapter after the animal death, it was only a little bit sad, and if it had just been that, I wouldn't have cried, but because we just had this animal death, it made me cry. It's just that general thing where people are in awful situations that are out of their control, and I always kind of hate that. Like, if you've dug your own grave, then I don't care if you suffer, but when people are doing their best and everything sucks regardless, it's the worst. Anyway, I am off to enjoy my last evening of level 3 lockdown, so I will probably see you tomorrow. Okay, so I suck at vlogging during the working week, even when it's lockdown and I can sleep in. But let me update you on my reading. So firstly, I finished off The Power on one of my lovely lockdown walks. I do think the ending, I did like the way that things came together. However, what I liked the most was the framing of the story. So in the beginning we had this whole section where this guy was writing an email or a letter to this famous woman author, and he was, you know, acting more like what a woman would in these days, and she was acting more like a man would. And right at the end we came back to that, and she was basically critiquing his story that she just read. And again, lots of her criticisms were really sexist. And it's just really interesting that I read this whole story, and it's just those end framing parts of the story that I really loved. So I don't know, I think for me it was only a 3-star book, but I do think that a lot of other people would really enjoy this book, and if you think the concept sounds interesting then you should pick it up, but just keep in mind that it's more like extreme stories, not necessarily the everyday thing. After I finished that, I picked up If Cats Disappeared from the World by Genki Karamura, and that's really short, only like 4 hours, but so far I think I've only listened to maybe an hour of it, maybe not quite even that. But basically it's about this guy, and he finds out that he's only got a short amount of time left to live, and then this devil comes and visits him and says that he will give him an extra day of life for each thing he picks to get rid of. And what I wasn't expecting from this is how humorous this devil character is, and like he's the one who's picking the things to get rid of, but he actually doesn't really understand a lot of human things, so that's quite interesting. Also, our main character does have a cat, and I can see that in the end the devil's gonna pick the cat to get rid of, and I'm not happy about that. As well, there's some kind of romance going to be going on. So this main guy was trying to pick 10 things to do before he died, and he found that really hard. All his things on his list were kind of terrible. What he did kind of realize is that he wished he could fall in love, and so he's made a meeting to meet up with some woman that he used to know. I don't know any more than that, but I will be reading some more of that soon, maybe not soon, because it's a beautiful sunny start to the weekend, and I'm probably gonna go off and enjoy the sunshine with Jace and not do any reading until maybe Sunday. Anyway, as well, I've been reading Dark Places, and I am up to page 222, which is like almost 100 pages from the end. To be honest, I stayed up way too late reading this last night, hence these bags under my eyes. Maybe I'll filter them out and you won't even be able to see them. But I am really enjoying this. I have crossed a few people off my suspect list, but there's still quite a few people on the list. As well, something happened that made me go, what? Like, you know, when you're reading a book and the very last sentence of a chapter is unexpected? And it wasn't like super shocking, but it was just unexpected. And I read it and I was like, what? And had to go back to be like, did I just read that? What? Was there a reason why they were saying that other than the way I'm thinking of it? Anyway, that has had an impact on things. So we're following the brother and the mother leading up to the night of these murders, and so you're kind of trying to guess how the things that are happening to them are going to lead to these murders, and so far I'm not really sure. I have some theories, but we'll see how they work out. Anyway, I'm really enjoying this and I can't wait to finish it. I don't know when I'm going to get time. Again, probably Sunday, but I am excited to continue it.
Dancing to your beat, wanted to blend in, no self-expression, 'cause I wanted you to see I'm not so different, fit in your system. So why do you tell me I'm wrong when I say the same things that you say, and you double the standards because you only like your way? So keep running your mouth, 'cause I'm tired of walking away. I want you to turn around and leave.
No, I don't think so. Oh my goodness. Hello, so I am about to film my March TBR, and I thought, since I haven't updated this vlog in a couple of days, that I better do that. So let's catch you up. Firstly, I finished off Dark Places. I really enjoyed it. There were some things I guessed and there were some things that I didn't, but the way that it all came together was really cool, and like all the things I didn't guess did make sense. I will say, like, pretty much all the characters are completely unlikable, but they are also kind of relatable at the same time. Anyway, this book is from quite a while ago, I think 2009, like over a decade old. So a lot of people have already read this. They told me it was good and they were right. I liked it. I do need to read a lot more thrillers for sure. Please give me thriller recommendations below, because just before this, looking up some books that I could read this month to meet some of my goals, I couldn't find any thrillers that were available in audiobook form at the library, so I really need some good audiobook thrillers is what I need. So recommendations, please. As well, I did finish the audiobook of If Cats Disappeared from the World, and I'm somewhat conflicted about it. I was really loving the humor, but then it kind of went downhill a little bit. There was a huge bit in the middle about movies, and it almost felt like the story was just being padded out, and given that it's only a 4-hour audiobook anyway, having a lot of padding seemed weird, so it kind of lost me at that point. I do think at the ending it kind of came back together when it was kind of really hitting the theme of the book, which is all about grief and what's really important in life. But I think overall in the end I was a little bit disappointed in it. Even there is at one point in this book a talking cat. How do you ruin a talking cat? Kind of the way that this book did, but never mind. Since I finished both of those two books, I have started reading The Burning Stone. There is 4 more days left of the month. Can I read 430 pages of this in the next 4 days. I mean, highly unlikely because I read this book really slowly, but at least I've started it and I think I'll finish it in March, although I think I am about to fill my March TBR up quite a lot. Oh well, I guess. Anyway, I'm going to be reading this at least for the rest of the month. This is book 3 of an epic fantasy series. There's 7 books. They all get chunkier and chunkier. We're following a bunch of different characters in this kingdom where there's all these people fighting over the throne. There's also dragon people attacking the kingdom. There's also some dark magic going on. So picking this up, one of the characters, his father, has basically turned to stone slowly over time, which is pretty traumatic. And the bit that I've read so far didn't come back to our other main character, Liette. She's kind of like the main character, or that's how I think of her. So I've kind of forgotten where she was at, but I guess I'll read some more and then I'll tell you some more about it. As well, audiobooks. So I started listening to the audiobook of Star Daughter, which is supposed to be this YA fantasy inspired by Indian mythology, and it's got some kind of stars involved. So basically our main character's mother was a star, or is a star, and now that she is kind of, I think, 16-ish, her star heritage is starting to affect her. But so far, to be honest, it's a lot more teen drama than I would like it to be. That's just for my personal taste. There's hints that that's just going to be for now, but at the moment it's all like drama over boys, and what if my parents find out about this, and my parents have so much expectations on me. And honestly, at this point in my life, I'm so far from that it's weird to read from. Also, I think I would like it better in physical form. It's one of these audiobooks where the way they're reading it just really puts me off. Did it just get darker? It's because my PC just fell asleep. Let me turn it back on. I am, while I'm filming, also keeping an eye on a work thing, but my work laptop does tend to fall asleep. But maybe it's good lighting, so maybe I'll keep it awake. I mean, I've currently got 4 screens around me. Maybe that's my lighting setup, is 4 screens. Can I turn up the brightness? Anyway, that's neither here or there. I am having quite a long week at work. Tomorrow I'm back in the office, but hopefully Friday can be a bit calmer since I am going to work from home. I'm not sure, but I'm hopeful. Hello. So, it's been a couple of days. I haven't really slept still. I don't know why. Anyway, I haven't read any more of this. It's now the weekend, so we've got 2 more days of the month. I don't think I'm going to finish this because I've still got like 400 pages to go. But I did start reading it, so like I'm not going to give myself a punishment. And I think what I might do is I have quite a few shorter books on my March TBR, so I might intersperse this with reading those. So like I'll read a few chapters of this between each one of those shorter books, because I think what gets me down the most with this book, like I enjoy it, but it's just so long and dense. The writing's tiny, it takes me ages to get through it, and then I start feeling discouraged because I'm not finishing anything. So I'm just gonna take my time with it, I guess. As well, I started listening to Star Daughter. Did I already talk about it? I think so. Basically, I think that this book has been done a great disservice by being given such a beautiful cover. The beautiful cover kind of gives you the impression that it's going to be this really lyrical, beautiful book. She looks like she's going to be some kind of majestic star princess type character with these amazing powers, and that's just not what this story is. I don't think the story is badly written, but the cover does not represent the story at all. And so I think a lot of the people who are picking this book up are not going to be the kind of people that would like this book. I had a look at the reviews and it's quite mixed. There's people who loved it and people who are like, oh, not what I was expecting at all. So I guess it's finding its way to some people who love it. But basically, it's mainly about this young girl and just like trying to fit in with her family, feeling like her family doesn't understand her. She's having difficulties with this boy, which mostly are around miscommunication and just, I guess, kind of keeping secrets from each other. And like, it's fine. It's probably very relatable to a lot of younger teens, I would say. But there's not much plot to it, or at least not so far. I think I'm about 2/3 of the way through it now, so I guess we'll see what happens in the last third. I do need to finish it today because the audiobook's going to return itself tomorrow morning. But I'm going to do a few chores now, and then I'm driving over to Jason's later, so between those 2 things, I should be able to finish it before it returns itself. I hope so. But I just would say, like, if you're looking for something really lyrical and beautiful, this is not it. It does have some really interesting things about the mythology, and I find the mythology really interesting, and I feel like a really amazing story could be written around this, but this particular story is not building on that mythology in the way I would be interested in. So it's fine, but it's not for me. This is why you shouldn't pick up books purely on the cover. But I mean, the synopsis didn't tell me anything that made it sound like it was going to be teen drama either. Anyway, the other thing that I'm going to confess to is this morning I went shopping and I listened to a bit more of that audiobook, but as well I had a look in this bargain bin of books and I bought House of Earth and Blood, Crescent City by Sarah J Maas. It was pretty cheap. It's a beautiful cover. That's probably the main reason why. I read this and I didn't hate it. I was really surprised I didn't hate it. But I wouldn't say I loved it. And normally my criteria for buying books is that I should love it. But it was super cheap and I didn't hate it. And the cover's pretty. I'm just trying to convince myself that it was a good decision. I don't know that it was a good decision. I haven't been sleeping, and when you don't sleep, you don't make good decisions, alright? Whatever. I do also, so the one thing that really sticks with me about this book is there's this one part, and it's a very small part, where the main character has like this scar on her upper thigh from when she got scratched by a demon, and then that demon blood is like festering and causing her problems. I have a scar on my leg from when it was infected, and we don't really know what happened, so I'm going to assume that at some point I got scratched by a demon and that's why it hurts sometimes. And like, I guess I just like forgot that I got scratched by a demon. I'm probably like a demon slayer and I don't even know. That's ridiculous, but anyway, that's the main reason I like that book and why I'm excusing myself for buying it. This is a very delicate balancing act because my tripod is broken. Anyway, so it's Sunday night now. Last night, Jason and I decided to go for a walk. It was really lovely. We got back about 9 o'clock. We thought we'll turn on the TV and watch a movie or something. We turn on the TV and there's news on and we think that's weird. It's not normally news on at 9 o'clock. And then they're saying something about the Prime Minister is about to speak and we thought, oh, we know what this is. And the truth of it is, probably we shouldn't have come out of our last lockdown. We should have stayed in and stayed safe. But anyway, we're going back into lockdown, which is funny because this next week I was planning to go into the office almost every day. And now I'll be staying home, which like in some ways is good because I like staying home. I like not having to do all that commuting. Although I was planning with all that commuting to get through a lot of audiobooks. So I'll have to go for some lockdown walks to make up for that, but it probably still won't make up for it entirely. And as well, like there's some work things that are happening next week that it would have been better to see people in person for, but it's okay. We can do it remotely, I guess. Anyway, I mean, it wasn't really a surprise. Lockdown is pretty much always something looming in the background until we get the vaccines out and all that other stuff sorted. And like, comparatively in New Zealand, we've still been very lucky not to have like year-long lockdowns. Anyway, let me talk about my reading. So I did manage to finish off Star Daughter while I was driving to Jason's place, and my opinion didn't really change, and maybe it kind of came together in an interesting way if you really cared about the characters, but I didn't care about the characters, so I do think, like, I think if you relate to the characters, then you, like, it's fine, but it's not the kind of story that I like, which is sad because it's such a pretty book. And I did really find the Hindu mythology interesting. I want to go and learn more about that, and I would love more books with that mythology in it, with all these stars that like inspire people. They can also hurt people or heal people. So much potential, but not the book for me, which I already said. As well, I haven't read any more of this. I'll read some more tonight before I go to bed, maybe? Depending on how well I go at organizing all the rest of my shit. But I'm definitely going to continue this in March and like spread it out between the other books. Definitely. And I guess next week, being in lockdown, I will have more time for reading physical books. So maybe I'll make some progress. Anyway, I think that's pretty much all for this vlog. I think I've been doing 2 weekly vlogs lately for some reason. I'm going to try to get back to weekly vlogs, but it doesn't matter. I read some books and I shared my thoughts with you, and that's the whole point of a reading vlog. So I would love to know if you have read any of the books that I read over these last couple of weeks, what you thought about them, or otherwise if you're interested in reading any of them. Also just let me know, like, how are things going with lockdown wherever you live? Because I do find it interesting to compare and contrast different experiences around the world. Anyway, that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.